Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Sean here with another episode of the Hero Academy. Today's episode, I really am excited to talk about. It is talking about how and whether or not you're working to your full potential. Recently, I just came back from a week-long leadership and mastermind conference, and it was a life-changing experience for me. I've never been away from, my friends and family and away from things that were familiar to me, especially in a country that I've never visited before. I was in Mexico, and it was beautiful. The resort was fantastic, and everything about it was awesome. But one of the things for me that probably resonated the most was the fact that I was away from everything that was familiar. So all I could do was be in the moment and really take it all in as for everything that it was. And so I'll say this: if you've never gone away specifically for your business, and we've all done vacations with family and friends, things like that. But if you've never gone away specifically for your business, I highly recommend that you spend some time to do that, even if it's just once a year. There's so many things that I want to tell you guys about it, and one of the things is actually what sparked today's topic about whether or not we're working at our full potential. Because while I was there, that was something that kind of struck me to heart. Okay, so that's what I want to kind of get into. We'll have another episode where I talk a little bit more about how that trip was at Cabo Press and how what changed for me, what I learned, who I met. All of it was amazing, because I don't know that I would have been in the room with these industry leaders and creatives in any other capacity. But like I said, we're gonna definitely talk about that at another time. So today I really want to focus on myself, if anything, using myself as an example, but then seeing how that can relate to you all the heroes here in the group. And thinking about whether or not we're working on our full potential, I'll tell you the truth that I really do come across a lot of different people all the time, whether it's at networking events, whether it's, friends and family, or different circles of influence that I have. I come across a lot of people who have a lot of different talents and skills. And while that may be something that I kind of see as common, whether or not they're taking advantage of those talents and skills is a totally different thing. Everybody's made up a little different. Some can come up with great ideas, but aren't really the people that can execute. And some people are really good at executing, but not necessarily come up with, really good fundamental ideas to kind of take a business or take it to the marketplace and then, execute on it. There's a lot of other things that kind of come into play as well, whether or not, they have the belief in themselves or in their products or services, or things that the ideas they come up with. And all of those kind of play a role in whether or not they're working at their full potential. So one of the things that I kind of thought about too while I was gone was imagining a day where I had everything that I needed in terms of resources. And so, whether it's the computers, the monitors, the software, whatever, right? And what would that day look like if I was to really work in my full potential, with no excuses, no distractions, nothing that I had all the tools that I needed. What would that day actually look like? And I kind of want to pose that question to all of you that are watching this is, what would a day like that look like for you? Like, what could you really get done? What would you be able to get done? Would you be excited about that day? Would that be nervous to you? What would that really look like? And if you can, I almost want to challenge you to kind of write down what that would be for you. Like, what would be, from let's say if you started your day at 6 o'clock, from 6 to 7, what would you do from 7 to 8, and so on, and time block, all of your day out. And what would you actually be able to accomplish if, sky was the limit in terms of your resources? Maybe it's money, maybe it's maybe it's equipment, whatever that it is. What would that look like? And I tell you, it's a really fun thing to do, to imagine. And at the same time, it's also not all the way impossible to do. Believe it or not, I feel like if we've all, as being a creative, if we decided to get into the marketplace, or even we're thinking about getting into the marketplace, chances are we have the things that we need around us to produce or to create. And it may not be with us ourselves, or maybe with our own hands, but chances are it could be through a proxy. Maybe it's through a colleague, maybe it's through a friend, maybe it's through a family member who maybe is more talented, or maybe more skilled in some of the other things, but maybe they are the other puzzle pieces to your puzzle to be able to make things work. And so I challenge you to write down what your day would look like and what things that you would actually need, and see if you actually may have a lot of those things. And then now it's just a question of, hey, why can't I make this one day a week a fully productive day, a full potential day where I'm actually doing what I've set out to do, right? So I have a couple of points that I want to go over with you guys. And the first thing is to identify the tasks that you can do daily that directly affect your bottom line. This was also something that kind of took from Kyle Press when I was there, was how many times do we sit down at our desks and we look at all the things that we have to get done, whether that's, our to-do list or things from yesterday, checking emails, returning phone calls or making phone calls, whatever that it is. How many of those things are actually pushing the needle? And by the needle meaning, how many of those things are pushing our bottom line? And the bottom line meaning, how many of those things are actually things that generate revenue for us? And for me, it was kind of a gut check because I'm always busy, right? And for a lot of us, we're always saying, yeah, we're busy. We got all these things that we have to do, these things that we have to do today or things that we have to get done. And then there's also things that we want to get done that we keep kicking down the road. But of all those things that we have to get done or do and things like that, how many of those things are actually things that are going to generate us revenue, are going to generate some kind of money? Even if it's going to be, selling a product, selling one extra product today that may be a $25 product or a $1,000 product. How much emphasis are we putting into, hey, let's make this work and let's get that done, instead of, hey, let's respond to these emails, let's go through our spam folders, let's go through, whatever, right? All those mundane things that chances are we probably could hire somebody to do those things for us or process those things out using a virtual assistant or a temp or something like that. I definitely want to challenge you to kind of review your day and review your processes and see, hey, are there things in here that I don't really need to do that really don't push the needle? And if they don't, this is where we get stuck. This is where we think that because we're doing these things, we're busy and we subconsciously are, and really we're not. And more times not, because we're in the middle of it and we're doing it every day and it's almost repetitive, if you will, or every other day, whatever, we're thinking that we're working, on the business when truly we're not. We're really in the business. And we've kind of talked about this before in some other shows, previous shows, but we really have to identify those things and say, hey, is this really worth it? Should I really be spending an hour of my time doing this? And is that hour going to generate me something? And if it isn't, and if no one's going to notice it if I don't do it, and I'm not going to notice it if I don't do it, nothing's going to happen if I don't do this, then why am I doing it? Is it really even necessary to do? And can we just remove that altogether and then move on to the next thing that actually is worthwhile? Right? Maybe it is, hey, instead of trying to go through all these emails and read these articles or whatever, maybe if I spend an hour making some cold calls, or responding back to maybe potential leads that I may have had, could that generate one new lead or one new sale? And if that does, wasn't that hour worth it? Instead of thinking, oh, I'll get to that later on, or I'll get to that next week, right? So that's the first thing there. Identifying those tasks and seeing what things actually are moving your bottom line. The next thing that I want to talk about is starting your day with a tactful plan. And try not to deviate. This is sometimes a little difficult too, because, we have maybe trying to get kids out the door. Maybe it's our routine is to, start with emails and then, maybe start with, and then get into meetings, and then those meetings turn into notes, and those notes turn into action items. And then before you know it, it's lunchtime, and then the afternoon lull comes. And then really when we look back at 3:30 at the whole day prior to us, it's like, what did we really get done? And so that happens all too often. And sometimes we're even more excited about getting to the end of the day and not really thinking about, hey, we really only have a couple more hours before the end of the day. What can we really get done? How can we really get productive here? And so by having a plan at the very beginning, maybe it's at the end of your day, you create the plan for the next day so that when you start, you already have that mapped out. Hey, we're going to do this. I'm going to set time for this. I'm not going to do this. This isn't worth it. And we're going to do this, that, and the third. And maybe it's not even all of those things. Maybe it's, instead of saying, hey, we're going to try to tackle 10 things today in this plan, we're only going to tackle 3. And of those 3, 2 of them are producing or are revenue producing, and the one is a bigger initiative. It's the frog that we have to eat for the day. It's the bigger thing that we've been kind of kicking the can down the road for. this is what we're going to get done. And then if we have any extra time at the end of the day, then we're going to go and do some of these other things because, they may be maybe more time consuming. They may be necessary, but just not as necessary as those other things that we've strategically set in our plan to get done first thing. That's another thing too. No one's really impressed with seeing a 2-page long to-do list, whether it's on your phone or on a notepad or whatever that it is. No one's really impressed with that because at the end of the day, no one really cares, right? It's and for the most part, we don't. I should say I don't care. I could show you mine, and it's like I probably have 30 things on my to-do list that are all in red, that are all past date or past due. That I look at it and I scroll through. And I'm like, still not gonna do, right? But I set a date for them. I made them of some kind of importance, and really they're not. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is display your accomplishments and bodies of work. This is something that we don't do often enough, and more times than not, people that may be around us, potential customers, potential clients, colleagues, things like that, may not truly know all the different things that go into our efforts. And so by displaying our accomplishments or displaying our products or our end results, our final results, it could really be a boost for you. I know it is for me when I'm done and I publish something and say, hey, I just created this, and it's out there. Like, now that I know that it's out there and it could be viewed, it's daunting, because it's published and it's up for judgment. But at the same time, it's out there and people know, or at least people will see, is like, hey, he's still creating. There's still things that he's working on, and there's still things that he's producing. And more times than not, we get lost in just creating or just working, and we don't really think about, hey, this is worth it for me to put out there. And don't do it for the vanity metrics. Don't do it because you're trying to get, maybe it's going to generate, 20, 30, 40 likes. More times than not, it's Mike Field saying, I feel like you're talking directly to me. And that very well may be. I try to do these as I'm talking to myself. This is my own therapy. But if you get anything from this, by all means, enjoy that. But by putting these bodies of work out there, at least for me, it's gratifying. It's almost a little euphoric, if you will, because it's like, hey, this is the reason why I do this. Or at least people know, yeah, I do these things. I do work on these things, or I do offer this product or service, even though I don't get a chance to talk about it as often because I'm knee deep in the trenches over here, or I'm always with clients doing this. Put out those bodies of work, and don't worry about them if they're not perfect. Again, we've talked about whether or not, the perfect paralysis, and whether or not we're waiting for that to actually put things out there. Put it out there. If it's almost done or just about done, or it's done and, maybe there's a couple of spelling errors, things like that, put them out there. I have a client of mine and also a colleague who's a fellow photographer, and he's jumping into LinkedIn, and he was concerned about it. He was like, well, I want to write these posts, and I'm not really sure I'm seeing what you're talking about with LinkedIn, but I don't want to do it wrong. I'm like, just put them out there. Here's some tips on what you could do. Using hashtags and posting at least 3-4 times a week. Use a great photo to kind of illustrate what you're talking about so people can see what you do, and then just put them out there. And he went ahead and started sending me emails. Said, hey, I just put out this post. Let me know what you think. And and that's great, because it's like he's looking for accountability for his efforts in publishing, but at the same time, he's still kind of getting out of his comfort zone and putting his work out there. Now, is he confident about his work? Absolutely. But confident about his work in that space? Different story. All right. So next thing is to find ways that you can focus down on one key product or service that you can offer your community, that your community would be widely used across your customer base or community. And what that means really is, I'll use myself as an example. So we do photography, we do media, we do websites, we do digital strategy and marketing. We do a lot of different digital services, but recently I started to do some market research about, in my area in Orlando, for how much demand is there for professional photography compared to digital strategy. And it was staggering. I mean, less than a fraction of the amount of people that are doing searches and looking for photography professionals compared to those that are looking for digital strategists, people who can actually look at a business, look to see what, understand what they're looking to do, and create a plan for in different areas of or different platforms for how they can create content, how they can repurpose, and things like that, right? And so that's one of the focuses that we're shifting towards, because we've kind of been doing it on the side, but not really making it our flagship. And for me as a photographer, it was like, wow, that's unfortunate, because there's so many different platforms where you have to have, really high quality photos to show your products, or, display your services, and having these videos, this, that, and the third. And more and more, people are using their resources like their phones, or like, these mobile devices, and they're not going towards these higher qualities. And that's okay. I think that eventually you get there, and there's probably a smaller segment that's probably more on the higher end. But for the masses, they're kind of DIYing it, in terms of their documenting process with photography, and that's fine. But for me, it was like, wow, I didn't know that, and then all the efforts that I was putting behind that, whether it's through ads or whether it's through reaching out and specifically creating content just for that, and not really seeing the results back. Really, I was talking to an audience that really wasn't there. And so by being able to look back at what all your offerings are, and almost do an audit to say, hey, this is something that really works, and this makes me money, right? Or this brings in money consistently every month, every week, every day, whatever that it is. Why not just focus on that? And then if maybe that's the foot in the door, and then while your foot is in the door with this product or service, and then maybe it's to say, okay, well, now that you know us and we have a relationship now, and how we've been performing this for you and it's been working great, there are some other things that we do as well. Maybe you're interested, because now that we've had this relationship, I see your efforts here, I see what you're trying to do in this area. We can help you with that, because we offer this, that, and the third. And that could work. But instead of coming in the door with, let's say, 5-10 different offerings, let's just come in with the one. And let's come in with the one really, really good, hyper-focused, very, very strategic, not just strategic in terms of your offering, but also strategic in your pricing. So that way, it makes sense. You're within the market, if not above the market, so that we can prove, your worth. But, really think about that. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about that, or what you guys have done. If you've done your own audit after watching this, let me know. Either shoot me a DM, put the comments below. I'd love to hear how you guys have done an audit on what your offerings are. Now, the last thing is probably the biggest thing. Identifying the tougher things that you need to do or need to work on, and tackle them first. There should be no more excuses. There should be no more procrastination, no more kicking the can down the road, no more saying, I don't have enough to do this right now, or I don't have whatever that it is. You fill in the blank on what you're missing to make it work, right? Whatever that is, no more excuses. Maybe that is to say, I don't know how to do Instagram ads, and I don't know how to get started. Yes, you can. You can Google it. You have plenty of people that are around you that probably have tried it, or that you can look into, or that you can ask. You have the Hero Academy that's right here that you can post something in. Somebody had just posted I think it was Wendy who posted a question about Spark AR. And I thought that was interesting, because I've never seen it before. But when I went and researched it, I thought that was awesome. AR is definitely a segment that I think that creators can really get into to create something or not completely different, but something that is much more interesting than the traditional things that we've been creating, whether it's from flyers or media, to bring awareness to brands. I think that's a great offering that's underutilized in this market. It will be overutilized eventually once people start to see the value of it and see how different apps kind of leverage the how do you say the knowledge that you need or don't need in order for you to still enter in with those content. But nonetheless, you can ask, and there's people that are around you that can help out with that. So there really isn't a reason for you to kick things down the road to say, hey, I can't do this. I'm not ready to do this. I want to do this, but I need to. No, just go ahead and do it. Whatever the biggest thing that's going to make the biggest impact in your business, and you know what it is, we all do, go ahead and do that now. There's no need for you to wait till, to January 2020, New Year's Day, to say, oh, now that the new year is here, we're going to do this. No. One of the things that I took back from the leadership conference was, hey, what is something that you are planning on doing next year, even if it's the middle of next year, all the way up to the middle of next year, that you can pull back from 2020 and do that now, get that done now, or start working on that now and get it done before the end of this year. And for me, I thought that was a tough question. It was a big question. And is it possible? Absolutely. But what is it that we're kind of getting in our own way about that in terms of being, working at our full potential, that could be holding us back? We can do this. So all of these things are ways, and there's probably more. I'd love to hear from you guys if you have some other ideas and some other notes on, really working at your full potential. But that's what I want. The whole point of this group is for us to be accountable to each other, for us to ask questions. I'd love to hear how any of these things have impacted you in terms of working at your full potential and identifying areas where you can. Start with a day. Or actually, let's step it back. Start with an hour and say, hey, for this hour, I'm going to time box this amount of time to work at my fullest potential with the resources that I have. And then see how rewarding that is when the time is done. Set a timer. Maybe it's on your phone, or actually get one of those old analog timers with the ding, those cooking timers, and set that up on your desk so that way you can kind of see the time ticking away, and it makes you, get into it and stay in the zone. And then, graduate to 4 hours, and then to maybe 8 hours, and to a day, and then maybe to 2 days, or maybe a weekend, right? But we know that it's in there. You know that it's in there. Don't let anything hold you back from that, all right? So that's all I got for you guys today. I'm glad to be back and look forward to hearing you guys in the comments, and I'll see you guys next week.